We've got a potential waiver wire stud in Arizona this week. I'm Joe Dolan, and this is the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup for Friday, October 14th, 2022.
It's time for the FantasyPoints.com Daily Lineup. Staying on top of the latest news and updates around the NFL. Rise and shine, folks. We're taking the field. Here's your host, FantasyPoints.com's Joe Dolan.
In our quarterback spot today, and potentially this weekend, is the Saints' Jameis Winston. Jameis has been limited at back-to-back practices as he recovers from back and ankle injuries. Now, this is more progress for Jameis. The quarterback didn't practice in either of the last 2 weeks with the injuries, missing 2 consecutive games as a result. Now, this appears to give him a chance to start in Week 6, though it remains to be seen if the Saints will throw him out there with such a banged-up receiving group. Of their top 3 wide receivers, Chris Olave was the only one practicing on Thursday as he recovers from a concussion. Neither Michael Thomas nor Jarvis Landry was able to get work in. Now, Olave picked up the head injury on a spectacular touchdown catch against the Seahawks in Week 5, and it's still too early to know if he'll progress through the concussion protocol in time to play in Week 6, though beat writer Nick Underhill of New Orleans.football said he's in the 3rd of 5 protocol steps. Obviously, recovery from concussions is not linear, so I just can't say if Olave will be out there Sunday against the Bengals. Now, if Jameis can't play, Andy Dalton would start again with a potentially decimated receiving group. At our first running back spot, we have the Cardinals' Eno Benjamin. Veteran back James Conner, who is dealing with a rib injury, didn't practice on Thursday, his second consecutive DNP. According to Aaron Wilson of Pro Football Network, Conner is not expected to play this week. So you know what that means. It's time to pour a glass of Eno Grigio. With Darrell Williams and Jonathan Ward also out, Williams with a knee and Ward with a hamstring, it's expected to be Benjamin and rookie Keontae Ingram handling the work against the Seahawks defense that hemorrhages points and yards. With Conner missing the second half of the Cardinals' Week 5 loss to Philly, Benjamin stepped up and produced 8 carries for 25 yards and a touchdown, and 3 for 28 receiving on 4 targets for a career best 14.3 PPR fantasy points. Now, by schedule-adjusted fantasy points allowed, the Seahawks allow 42% more fantasy production to running backs than those running backs' season average on the year, which is by far the highest in the NFL. Eno is a strong RB2 option and will be very popular for DFS because he flopped the nuts with this matchup. Returning to practice on Thursday in anticipation of playing in Week 6 is the Colts' Jonathan Taylor. Taylor was a limited participant in practice on Thursday, his first practice session in over a week. After the Colts' win over the Broncos last Thursday night, Coach Frank Reich seemed optimistic that the injury was of the low ankle variety and that Taylor could get back in the saddle this week. With Taylor returning to practice on Thursday, it seems like that prediction has a shot to come true. Now, Indy also lost Nyheim Hines to a concussion during the game and couldn't move the ball with consistency, though fortunately for them, they were playing the woeful Denver Broncos, who, of course, we get to see on primetime again this week. I am thrilled. Both Hines and Taylor have to be considered questionable right now for Week 6 against the Jags, though I feel pretty good about Taylor. Now, Taylor had just 9 carries for 54 yards and a blowout loss to the Jags back in Week 2, but the Colts have made some offensive line changes since then, so it'll be interesting to see if the new line starts to gel. They need the run game for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan at this stage of his career is not the kind of quarterback to be dropping back 50 times, especially behind a bad offensive line. In our wide receiver 1 spot, we will potentially have Keenan Allen. Allen was a limited participant in Thursday's practice as he recovers from a hamstring injury suffered all the way back in Week 1. Now, the Chargers play Monday night against the Broncos. Yes, another one. I keep reminding myself that we have to watch the Broncos in primetime. So we'll want to get some definitive information on Allen before popping him in a fantasy lineup. But limited is an upgrade from where he was the last few weeks, at least suggesting he has a chance to play. Now, this has a big effect on Mike Williams' fantasy production, by the way. Our guy Graham Barfield dug into the numbers for his Stat Pack article up at fantasypoints.com. And Williams, over the last 2 weeks, has gotten 29% and 38%, respectively, of Justin Williams' passing targets. And since the start of 2020, Williams is averaging 6 receptions, 86.4 yards per game, and 0.4 touchdowns per game on 9 targets per game when Keenan Allen is out. But that dips to 4 receptions, 60 yards, and half a touchdown per game, and 12.9 fantasy points per game when Allen plays. So he scores more touchdowns, but gets less volume. We'll learn more Friday about the status of these receivers. Now, at our other wide receiver spot, it's looking iffy for T. Higgins this week against the Saints. Higgins didn't practice on Thursday with his ankle injury, the second consecutive DNP for the Bengals wideout. Higgins lasted just 10 snaps, and he didn't see a target before he left the lineup for good in Week 5's loss to the Ravens. Our Edwin Porras believes Higgins may have suffered a high ankle sprain in Week 4, which would make Cincinnati's decision to suit him up in Week 5 a little more baffling. Head coach Zach Taylor said after the game that Higgins, quote, could have been an option in the second half against the Ravens, but the fact that he's not practicing on back-to-back days in Week 6 is a clear suggestion that he aggravated the injury. Now, if Higgins can't play against the Saints and their banged-up secondary, Mike Thomas, not the Saints' Mike Thomas, who might not play this week, the other Mike Thomas, would join Jamar Chase as the Bengals' primary outside wide receivers. Indeed, it's a battle of the wounded. Saints top cornerback Marshawn Lattimore has missed back-to-back practices with an abdominal injury, while Lattimore's main perimeter partner, Paulson Adebo, has picked up a knee injury. And he's been limited, by the way, so he has a shot to play. Chase will get a lot of attention from the defense this weekend, but he should get some from Joe Burrow as well. We've been waiting for him to pop off. This could be the time. In our flex spot, we have Kyle Pitts. I didn't feel like coming up with something witty for that, but Pitts has practiced on a limited basis over the last 2 days and seems to be angling for a return to the lineup against the 49ers' nasty defense this weekend. Now, it was not anticipated that Pitts' hamstring injury that kept him out last week was anything serious, and this seems to be confirmation. The bad news for Pitts is he's been minimally productive this year, even when healthy, and Marcus Mariota has been atrocious the last 2 weeks, going 21-44 for 286 yards with just 1 touchdown and a pick. Now, Pitts is a tight end 1 by nature of the position, but is shaping up to be perhaps the biggest bust in all of fantasy this year. So even if Pitts is a freak, which I think he still is, and Drake London is the real deal, which he has kind of shown to be thus far, no one can survive this low-volume passing offense. Mariota is averaging just 24.6 pass attempts per game. He has not thrown more than 26 pass attempts over the last month and is averaging 22.5 attempts per game over his last 4 outings after attempting 33 passes in Week 1 versus the Saints. It's just so hard for a big-time receiver or a perceived big-time receiver to survive in that environment. I'm Joe Dolan, and this has been the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup. Yet another week. It's been Week 6 of the regular season. We did this for a number of weeks back in the preseason as well. And according to my guy Ben Kukanis behind the glass, by the way, it looks like next week is going to be our 50th episode. So I'm really pleased about that. Now, remember to like this video, hit that thumbs up, and subscribe to the Fantasy Points channel for the daily lineup and all of our videos. Now, we paywall a large part of our in-season content, like the matchup points live stream, the cashing points, the point spread. But you've also seen free previews of those on our YouTube channel, and you want to get to fantasypoints.com to subscribe for those, and you'll be really glad you did. We're already 25% off. The season's 25% over. Get an extra 10% off by using code lineup22 at fantasypoints.com. Tell them I sent you. This has been another week of the Fantasy Points Daily Lineup. I'll talk to you Tuesday, and enjoy the games this weekend. Really, just dominate in fantasy football. Bye-bye, everybody.